Test 1, 2. JOG C, which is we're listing as the JOG C and a meeting of the Board of Retirement and Board of Investments. Today is Thursday, November 6th, 2025, and the time is 9:11 a.m.
Recording in progress.
The first item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll go ahead and lead it. Please rise, place your right hand over your heart, ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And our next is our legal announcements. So let's go ahead and do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Keogh. This meeting is being conducted as a virtual and in-person meeting. So I will do roll call to confirm attendance. Mr. Keogh?
Present.
Mr. Robbins?
Aye.
Ms. Mee?
Present.
Mr. Jones? Ms. Martin?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Rue? Mr. Oakham?
Present.
Mr. Green? Trustee Martin will be participating via teleconference AB 2249 for Just Cause Contagious Illness. Trustee Martin, can you please confirm if there are any individuals 18 years or older present at your location?
No one's present but the cat.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Langton will also be participating in the meeting today. Staff participating include Acting CEO Louis Lugo, CIO John Grable, DCIO Jude Perez, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, and AEO Laura Guglielmo. We also have consultant CBIZ presenting today. Please use the Zoom chat option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute their mic until you're ready to speak. And now we may proceed with the agenda.
Great, thank you. Our first item would be the approval of the minutes, but since we don't have a quorum, we'll go ahead and table that without objection and move on to the public comment period that we've received. Okay, we have no requests from the public to speak. So that brings us to our non-consent item A, which is our fiscal year 25-26 proposed mid-year budget adjustments. I believe Laura will be doing the presentation on that. You can take it away whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Kehoe and members of the committee. Before you this morning is LACERA's proposed 25-26 mid-year budget adjustment. We plan to walk you through the adjustments that we're requesting and then addressing any questions that the committee may have at this time. After this board's approval, if we get our quorum to approve, it will go to the Board of Investment and the Board of Retirement for approval. As is our practice, we thoughtfully analyzed our expenditures to date, and we do have a few necessary adjustments to the LACERA's administrative budget. We are not proposing any adjustments to the retiree healthcare program, benefits program budget at this time. So as a recap, the board's adopted LACERA's $146.2 million administrative budget for fiscal year 25-26, including budget authority for 508 positions. The retiree healthcare benefits program has 37 positions, and together that's 545 positions for to support LACERA's mission. Some of those positions are not funded in the budget, or they have not yet been approved by the Board of Supervisors. The adopted administrative budget for 25-26 included $111.1 million for salaries and employee benefits and $35.1 million for supplies and services. These are the two broad budget categories that LACERA uses, and each category has a number of line items or accounts where funds are designated for specific divisions to meet our operational needs. LACERA's budget policy authorizes the CEO to make necessary adjustments between accounts and to transfer up to $1 million from one budget category to another. He has that authority, but it does require reporting of these adjustments publicly to this committee. However, when the adjustments exceed the CEO's authority or when additional funds are needed to be appropriated within our statutory limit under SURL, or when additional permanent positions are requested, the Board of Retirement and the Board of Investments must approve the adjustments. So today we'll go over the changes, but the reason it's before you today as an action item is because there is one new position being proposed. So within the salaries and employees benefits category, the CEO has authorized $159,000 to be transferred. $106,000 within the executive office, and from temporary staffing to gross salaries and variable benefits to account for the CEO's, acting CEO's bonus. And $53,000 within human resources from gross salaries to our intern program, because we extended the timeframe that we're using interns in the organization beyond just the summer period. Within the services and supplies categories, within the services and supplies category, $405,000 is proposed to be transferred. This is primarily for increases to the offsite board meeting expense for the Board of Retirement and the Board of Investments, based due to hotel and audiovisual costs. We also proposed increases for building security, including the private security guard for member services, and the additional panic buttons, which will be installed later this, hopefully in the next few months. Then increases for outside legal counsel and job analyst services are required for the Disability Retirement Services Division based on specific cases that we know are under review. And these costs will be funded by reduced expenditures for our fiduciary insurance, which were less than we expected, consulting and contractual services, renovation projects, and our medical advisor accounts. So there's no need for an appropriation. We just are adjusting within these accounts to cover these expenses that were a little greater than we anticipated. So this request requires the committee to approve as I mentioned, that these are not items that would necessarily require any approval, except for the one position, which is a senior investment officer in the investment office. This would increase the budgeted positions in the investment office from 48 to 49. The proposed senior investment officer would be dedicated to portfolio analytics and would expand the investment office's capabilities and address the requirements of a changing investment landscape. As LACERA's asset allocation and investment strategies become more complex, new programs are being introduced, including the growth of our other post-employment benefits or OPEB program, overlay implementations, and changes to risk management. As a result, there's an increased need for specialized oversight and practical analytics. The CIO would be responsible for developing new investment programs and guidelines, managing liquidity, improving risk management practices and performance reporting, and standardizing process across asset classes, supporting consistent operations for both the pension fund and the OPEB fund. These responsibilities are directly aligned with the division's strategic goals and address current gaps in analytics, risk management, and operational consistency. The full year cost of this additional position is approximately $386,000, including $257,000 for salaries and $129,000 for employee benefits. Based on the investment office's existing expenditures, we anticipate that the current salary and employee benefits unused funds can fully absorb this cost for the remainder of this fiscal year. Therefore, no additional appropriation or transfer of funds is needed. However, staff will continue to monitor the actual expenditures throughout the year, and we do not expect any additional adjustments. If the position is approved, you should be aware that the full year funding would be included in the 26-27 proposed budget. So the only thing I also want to add is we have not included any adjustments for cost of living adjustments that are currently being negotiated with our partners at SEIU. That will, if any adjustment is needed when it comes time to approve any final agreement, that we would make that request at that time. So that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions. Please use the Zoom option if you have questions. I'm hearing none. I appreciate. Oh, sorry.
Thank you for the report. My question is really simple. One is that just help me understanding the need for this position. I read through the responsibility, sounds like absolutely there's a critical responsibility we need someone to take care of it. Just help me understand. I would assume this responsibility currently exists, right? And then the entire team probably stretching and then pulling in to fill this responsibility. And then there's a value add that have a dedicated person to oversee this entire concentration of responsibility. Is that right?
I am going to defer to the
Okay.
expert, Mr.
Sounds
Grable.
good. Just help me understand the operation there. Yeah.
Fully explain. I will not adequately express
No
as
problem.
eloquently as Mr. Grable will.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, trustees. And Ms. Mee, the answer to the question relates to right now, the portfolio analytics team has principal investment officer, and then other positions being investment officers known as FA3s, senior financial analysts, FA2s, and then we implemented our fellowship program, which are FA1s, and that's a 2-year rotational program. The job of the the senior investment officer is to really elevate the principal investment officer to focus more on strategy, to be supported by a senior investment officer that then handles the implementation. And in the process, within all our functional teams and asset categories, the goal is to have succession planning, training, development. And I think that this adds more durability backup within the investment division. So one of the things I'd like to see is longer term, all principal investment officers supported by 1 or 2 senior investment officers, such that we don't have gaps within the division.
Yeah, I saw the org chart. I think the portfolio management team is the only team that doesn't have senior investment officer, right? Got it.
Yes.
Thank you. And that makes sense. One last question, simple one too. Is this position currently open in recruitment, or are we in the process?
Through the chair, there is a recruitment in process, and what we would do, and HR or Laura can speak better to it, is we could do an underfill based upon a current vacancy.
So recruitment is ongoing, open to the public right now. So just shout out to people.
We're doing an internal promotional exam.
Oh, got it.
You're gonna do internal, okay. John, do we have other senior investment officers? How many do you have?
We have senior investment officers in credit and risk mitigation. We have 2 in growth. We have 1 focused on public equity, 1 on private equity. We have 2 in real assets, 1 focused on real estate, 1 focused on other real assets. And am I forgetting anyone? And then this would be the other one.
Thank you.
Got it. Just for my colleague here, our job, we hire CEO, we hire CIO, we delegate the authority for them to how to hire their staff and manage the staff, see how we fit, internal promotion, outside, how we see fit, right? And this sounds like a great news. Like first, we have internal talent, sounds like, and then second is good to retain our talents by giving the opportunities for internal promotion. Yeah. So thank you. That's all question I have.
Right, and Mr. Chair, I because you still don't have a quorum, you can't approve this yet.
Yeah. So what I was going to suggest that we do is that we direct staff to take this to both boards with a verbal recommendation, not a vote, verbal recommendation from our JOGC to adopt it, with noting that we did not have a quorum, but there was no objection from any members. So if there's no objection from anybody on the board, that's what we'll direct staff to do. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for your hard work on this. And I really appreciate the direction that we go with mid-year budget adjustments and all of that. These are things that years ago that our board was not a part of. So we did the one-time budget and that was it. So I appreciate it. Okay, so this brings us, we'll go ahead and just go to, we'll skip by because I know that B is one that we want to actually do a vote on, but let's move to item 7, reports. We have a 24-25 final budget control report. And I know that's an information only item, so I will ask if any trustees have any questions on that item. Hearing none, we will go ahead and go to our item, bring us back to item B, our approval of concept for the incentive pay plan for investment positions. I'll let staff get set up for that. Being CEO Lugo, you can proceed whenever your team is ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Kehoe, committee members. I'm going to slide up really quick. Thank you, Lucy, for running the slides. I want to start with me today, we have Joe Rice from CBiz, who's been a consultant on this engagement. And we also have our Human Resource Director, Carlina Toyer, who's been extremely involved, as well as Lucy with our HR team in terms of supporting this initiative to get us to this point. And I don't want to exclude the investment office as well. They've been critical in terms of providing data and information. So over the last year, LACERA has worked in close partnership with CBiz Compensation Consulting, our HR team, our investment team, and the executive office to develop a thoughtful and market-informed incentive pay plan structure that's going to be before this committee. This effort is rooted on shared goals of aligning compensation with performance and market competitiveness. This proposal represents phase 2 of CBiz's study, building on the foundational work of phase 1, which was presented to the committee several months ago, which addressed base pay alignment and compression issues within the investment office. The incentive pay framework before you today is designed to attract and retain top-tier investment talent, reward high performance, and support LACERA's strategic direction as a best-in-class institutional investor. Importantly, this work is informed by a broader pension plan peer group study, which Joe Rice will go over from CBiz, ensuring that our compensation practices are benchmarked against comparable public pension systems. And while today's focus is on the investment division, we recognize that compensation discussions can have broader organizational impacts. Staff outside of investments may experience morale effects as these changes are considered. My message to staff outside of the investment team is we are equally committed to ensuring that non-investment classifications are compensated at levels that are competitive, both with market and peer industry standards. To that end, we are actively advancing classification studies and compensation structure review across all departments at LACERA. I want to highlight recommendation and next steps before we pass the presentation over to Joe. We are recommending that the committee review the proposed concept of an incentive pay plan structure for the investment division positions and its components. The JOGC directs staff to prepare the necessary materials to implement the structure. And the JOGC recommend the structure and supporting materials for approval by the Board of Retirement and Board of Investments, with direction to present the full packet to the County of Los Angeles Board of Supervisors for inclusion in their county salary ordinance. There's still, if approved by the committee, there's still a lot of work to be done between now and the time that this package gets delivered to both boards. Finalizing the county ordinance language, completing classification updates, and fully vetting decisional points that's outlined within the investment plan document to ensure clarity, fairness, and alignment with the LACERA strategic goals and values. Our target is to return to both boards in February, assuming the committee approves the next steps, with a complete and actionable package for formal vote and advancement to the Board of Supervisors. With that, I'll turn it over to Joe from CBiz to walk us through the incentive pay plan framework and its components.
Thank you for that. Lucy, if you can please advance the slide. Good morning. Good to be with you today in person. I've had the opportunity to present in the past, but it's my first time here. So just quick introduction to recap if you're not familiar with us. We're a national compensation consulting firm within CBIZ. CBIZ does a lot of different work in professional services. We have extensive experience working with U.S. public pension funds. We have a partnership with NC PERS to conduct an annual compensation survey, where in our most recent survey, we had 169 participants provide us with their compensation data, so that when we do work like this, we have that information quickly available that we can complete that benchmarking. So I'm Joe Rice. I'm the managing director of the overall project lead, but Gabby Davidson's also been a part of the project. She's not able to be here today. And then you can see on the right some of the recent public pension fund clients that we've had in recent years. So quick overview of the two different phases that have been described. So overall, there's some overarching goals, and that is to assess and align market competitive pay. The purpose, as Lewis was saying, was to attract and retain key top-tier talent. But then another component is also to make sure reward employees for the successful results of the association. And so that's a big part of what we've designed in phase two. So phase one was the compensation benchmarking to that group of peer U.S. Pension funds. We evaluated base pay and total cash compensation. That's just a term that we use for base pay plus any bonus, any variable pay that is received within the year. We documented at that time just some of the trends, the practices in incentive plan design, and then we also designed and revised pay structures based on that initial research. So as we move into phase two, it's more focused on that incentive compensation plan. So there's a draft that we've prepared. We've modeled the costs associated with that. There's the draft of a formal plan document that was included in today's materials. And then also to make sure that the work that we're doing in phase two aligns with the principles that were set out in phase one. So what we'll look at with the remainder of this presentation is a quick review of similar plans, just to give you a little bit of visibility into the specific plan designs. Then we'll look at the incentive plan framework and close with some of the cost modeling. So as we look at the review of the plan, some of the initial high-level takeaways are on the page here. So what you'll see as we look through them is that there's a mix of quantitative and qualitative components. So when we talk about the quantitative, those are going to be specific measurements to the total fund and asset class performance, so easily measurable. But then there's also a qualitative component, so taking into account individual performance as a part of that as well. You'll see a lot of fund and asset class performance. It's going to be common, probably no surprise there, but looking at a mix of the overall results of the fund, but then also for individuals with specific asset class responsibility, bringing that in as a component as well. So when we look at different metrics for consideration, there's a weighting in how that gets allocated over the entire bonus. And so you'll see that there's variability in that weighting. That's a best practice design. You know, generally you want to align the top leaders with the overall results. And then as you get further down into the organization, you can bring in more of that asset class performance, more of the individual performance. There's some measurement period variability, but overall most plans are going to be focused on, you know, more of that medium to long-term results, some blending, you know, maybe between 1 year and 5 year. There's a mix, but it's very rare to have just single year performance for the quantitative measures to drive the plan results. And then some deferral for negative returns. So many plans provide the board with the ability to defer, reduce, or eliminate incentive awards in years when the investment returns are negative, even if they exceed their benchmark. Okay. So on the next two slides, we have a summary of select plans. So this is based on information that's publicly available that we're able to review. And so you'll see a couple of the California funds listed there with CalPERS and CalSTRS. What we show is the metric alignment. So looking at the fund performance, so that's overall fund, asset class performance, and then the qualitative. And so really looking across, you'll see that there's a blend of all of those on this first page. The measurement period has some variability. That trend continues on the second plan as well. We also show at the bottom just what the max CIO incentive opportunity is as a percent of base pay, so some variability there as well.
So CalPERS has no asset class specific adjustments.
That's correct. Yeah. And the thought is that might be, we don't have insight into their individual performance, but we would imagine that's taken into account there. Okay. So with that, we'll start to go through the incentive plan framework and assessment. So to start with, we want to cover some definitions. So base salary is what the employee is paid for performing the job. Annual incentive is going to be any variable compensation that is paid within the year. And so the sum of base salary and the annual incentive is what we call total cash compensation. So in some times we'll reference that as actual. So when we look at the survey data, we can see what was actually received. We might focus on that number. Other times we might look at maximum total cash compensation. So that would be what would be available with that maximum incentive payout. Market reference point is used as well. So that is a metric that we've used to help set the base salary ranges. And it's a calculated base salary number derived from target total cash compensation and the incentive opportunity. So we essentially take those and we back into a base salary number. When we look at the incentive plans, you'll see that we talk about threshold, target, and stretch or maximum. So when we refer to threshold, it's a performance level. So that is a level of performance required for kind of that minimum payout. So achieving the threshold results is going to equal the minimum payout percentage. Below threshold performance, the incentive opportunity is going to go to 0. Target is the expected performance level for a goal. So you want to set that, align that target level with that expected performance. So achieving the target results in the standard payout percentage. And then there is a maximum or stretch where for that exceptional performance level, achieving stretch results in the maximum payout available for that goal. So a phase 1 recap again is that we identified a peer group of funds for compensation comparison. We have the list of funds identified on the right where we show the fund name and the assets under management. This is carried over from that phase 1 work where those assets were listed based on April 1, 2023. So somewhat dated there, but it represents what we looked at the point in time. You'll also see on that peer list that we have an identifier for those plans that do have an incentive plan in place. So as you look at the list, most of them are going to have that an incentive plan in place. We propose new base pay ranges and incentive eligibility. And the philosophy at the time was we wanted to achieve market 75th percentile compensation under 2 conditions. So if the employee is at the midpoint of the pay range and the bonus pays out at the maximum. So in the event of those 2 conditions, the employee would have the opportunity to earn market 75th percentile pay. So we'd expect some variability around that depending on where the employee falls within the pay range and the performance of the incentive plan. But overall, that's what we wanted to establish. And then we analyzed peer plan designs and we summarized those findings. So the phase 2 background was that LACERA staff designed the framework presented on the following slides. And what we've then identified as CBIZ is we provide kind of insight and kind of weigh in on our view of that. The overall incentive plan is derived by that visual at the bottom, where we're going to start with a target incentive bonus that's measured as a % of base salary. From there, we're looking at different metrics or goals, and we're going to await them. We're going to allocate the overall bonus between different metrics. And then we will measure based on the performance. So that's going to determine the final incentive award. And so we'll walk through that all in more detail. So the phase 2 tasks were revised base pay ranges. So as we finalized the incentive targets, we did, when we looked at phase 1, we had a framework for that, but we really dialed that in with the phase 2 work. We finalized the incentive opportunity amounts, determined the incentive framework. So that's looking at the performance metrics, the weighting, and the performance expectations. We included cost modeling. We drafted an incentive plan document and with the goal to implement for 1/1/26. So this slide looks at the final base pay ranges that we've recommended. So you can see that outlined by position. That first column just shows the overall range. And then we just segment those numbers based on different kind of quartiles. So you can see that visibility as well. So there is a broad range for payment. And on the next slide, we actually have a comparison to what is in place currently. So this might be more helpful. So we show the current pay range and then the proposed pay range. And so one of the key insights from our analysis is that even with the benchmarking that we've completed, we're not only recommending the incentive opportunity, but also an advancement of some of these ranges as well. You'll see that the minimums established here are going to go up, the midpoints, and then the maximums. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. So we're identifying narrower pay ranges in some sense. So we want to minimize that minimum to maximum spread so we can have a tighter salary number so that when we look at that incentive opportunity, we don't have a wide range of payout options.
Why does the financial analyst to maximum kind of go lower?
Yeah, that's one where essentially what we would say is that pay range previously would be too wide. So we want to narrow that. That's going to help get the minimum up. So the minimum does increase there. There's just more flexibility than you would need in a role like that is what, our recommended. As we looked at the market data, we would want to tighten that up to have a narrower range of base pay data just to avoid wild extremes within the incentive payout.
So as you go into this phase 2, are you going to recommend tightening up? Because to me, when I look at the 2 and the 3, that's a significant difference. Like a significant difference with a single promotion. Yeah.
At this point, this is what we would recommend based on the market data that's gathered. It does represent a big jump, which is somewhat rare, but it is supported by the data we've gathered.
I'll have more to say on that, but yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting, and maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying, is that the proposed maximum now is 217, and you're proposing based on other organizations 198.
Correct. And part of that is, we are recommending incentive opportunity as well. So I don't think there's any impact to employees that they would be hurt by that different pay range maximum. It could be off there. But overall, that tighter range we think is going to be more effective.
Now, this is just salary, is that correct on this?
That's just salary, yeah.
Current page, so you're talking about raising chief investment officer $100,000, and the other second one is 137?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
At the maximum, yeah.
That's the max?
Yeah.
Okay, and the average, okay, so we're way below average on most of our people.
Yeah, so average pay does exceed some of the ranges, both somewhat currently and then also some of the proposed. And the thought behind that was without the incentive opportunity, you had to push the base pay ranges to help with competitiveness.
Okay, but this doesn't include any incentive, or
correct? Yeah,
okay.
This is just
there's no incentive in this.
Right. And Lucy, the next slide might help bring actually slide 22, if you could flip there. So that does tie in then to total cash potential. So this might better address the question that when we look at these base pay ranges with the minimum, midpoint, maximum, we have the proposed bonus targets there. And then you could see the potential base pay range in that final column. So we have target pay that's, at midpoint with the target bonus, but the bonus could pay out at 0, in which case the employee, if you have an employee at the minimum of the pay range, then they would not move through that range at all. And then we're taking the maximum of the base pay range with the maximum incentive. And so that's going to be the theoretical range of pay with these new ranges and incentive targets.
And what would happen? This might be a Carly question. What would happen if somebody were to have a reduction? It looks like the rest of them are not going to really be impacted. I know that the total midpoint will be higher for financial analysts too, but it seems like the base pay is going to be reduced. Would that impact an actual person in the FA2 position if we were to ultimately adopt this, or would they be grandfathered in on their existing pay scale?
Our current incentive plan outlines the ability to opt in. So opting into this incentive plan does lower the top, the max of the pay range, and then they become bonus eligible.
Got it. So they would choose, okay, I want to go into this knowing their base pay would go down, but their overall total compensation potential would be going up. Okay, thank you.
Have you figured approximately what this would cost LACERA? Because I'm looking at 120%.
We do have some of that cost modeling in later slides.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
We'll let you continue on. I think you were on like slide 16
What's that?
before. I was just saying he can continue on with the presentation.
So we explored a little bit on slide 22 with the slide here, but just to cover it again. So we're showing the different, it says grades, but the different positions, and then the recommended bonus payout measured as a percentage of base pay. And so threshold, that's going to align with that minimum level of performance that would still warrant a bonus, right? So at that threshold level of performance, that is what the employee could expect as a payout. We have the target, and then that maximum provides that top end upside. So overall, as we look at this, it does align with the phase one work. As we talked about as well, we have that market reference point approach where these are the incentive targets or the incentive maximums that would need to be met in order to achieve that market 75th percentile pay, assuming that the employee was at the midpoint of the pay range. And so that represents a rare occurrence. It's not often that the entire incentive is going to pay out at maximum. So most years you're going to expect something below that level.
Miss May, I see your hands up. Do you want to wait or do you want to ask? It's up to you. Okay.
Okay. Next slide, Lucy. Thanks. So on slide 17 here, we introduced the performance metrics. So you can see the total fund, and then we have the different asset classes listed with the individual performance evaluation at the bottom. So currently the threshold target and maximum performance expectations are measured based on basis point outperformance to the benchmark. The measurement period for the financial metrics is set to 3 years, with the individual performance set to each annual review. So as we look at this, these metrics are common and what we would expect. The investment return measurement period aligns with what we would expect as well. Same with using the annual rating for the performance period. One of the things to highlight here is that the performance can pay out even in the event of investment underperformance, right? So that's its own weighting. Theoretically, you could have the negative investment returns or returns that don't meet their benchmark, but based on individual performance, it would provide some opportunity for a bonus. So there's both pros and cons to that. From the employee, if they did have positive performance in that year, it can be recognized and rewarded. However, it might be uncomfortable to provide bonuses when you don't have the financial performance to support those. So do want to highlight that. Some considerations here as well is looking at some asset class variability. So right now, the threshold target and maximum parameters, they're set consistently. There's going to be some asset classes where getting 50 basis of outperformance is going to be much more likely than in other classes where it might be more conservative with less variability. So I think those are things to watch over time and potentially get a little bit of variability built into those. It also provides, like with the payment starting at matching the benchmark, and that is very common within the funds that we see. But it is just a highlight that you might want some level of beating your benchmark before the incentive would kick in. But it does align with what we saw on those earlier slides. Did want to list the performance benchmarks that were set out as well. So this is not anything that we're proposing or that staff has proposed that is different from what has been approved. It's just really tying it together and highlighting that these are the reference policy benchmarks that need to be met with each of the different metrics. And then the metric weighting, there's kind of 2-3 categories here. So at the top, we're looking at the CIO and the deputy CIO, where 80% of the bonus is going to be tied to the total fund, with 20% based on individual performance. There's a functional team member group. So those are roles that work across all asset classes. So those are going to be 75% total fund with 25% individual performance. And then where we do have asset responsibility, we can build that in as part of the component as well. So, keeping the individual performance there at 25%, but then splitting it 40% based on total fund and 35% based on asset classes. This is what we would expect to see. Do you want to talk about the metric scoring and give an example of that? So we've talked about, those fixed points of threshold, target, and stretch or maximum, but it is a linear interpolation to calculate that payout. So as basis point outperformance increases, that's going to align to a different and distinct number. And so you can see between threshold and target, that bonus is going to scale from half of the target payout to target payout. But then as you go from target to stretch, it kind of doubles that incentive opportunity. So that scale increases. And in the example here, where if target is 25% basis points and maximum is 50, and actual comes in at 37.5, that's going to be right there in the middle. It would result in a payout of 150% of that target number. Not 150% payout, but 150% of the target opportunity. Okay, with that, we can look at some cost modeling. We did look at this slide already, so I think, Lucy, you could advance from that. Let's look at a payout range sample. So here we took a senior investment officer with a salary of $346,000. As we looked at earlier, we've identified a 30% bonus opportunity there. So as a dollar value, that would be $103,000. That's split between the 3 different metrics. So when we look at total fund, that's weighted as 40% of the bonus opportunity. So if you take that 103,000 times the 40%, you get that 41,530. Asset class 35% and individual performance 25%. So we look to that second to last column. We're showing the different performance levels, payout and levels. So at threshold performance, below threshold performance, that's going to be a 0, right? No bonus. Meeting threshold performance, that's 50% of the target value. So if we look at the total fund, that would result in $20,765. Target at 100% of the target payout, that equals that 41,530. And then the maximum does allow for 2 times that target value at 83,059. So it's going to be somewhere within that range of payout. And then as you look between the 3 different metrics, right, you have a lot of different variability depending on asset class and performance and individual performance, what that payout might look like.
Question, if I may, Sean.
Sure.
Have you evaluated, have you gone back like the last 3 years and looked to see?
Oh, great question.
What we would have paid out, or what our wonderful group would have received, okay, based on these bonuses?
I think that's the next slide.
Oh, it is the next slide?
Okay, we'll build that over the next couple of slides. So
Okay.
We are modeling based on current performance. So what we're showing there is the different metrics. And as we've talked about, we have the threshold performance at 0 basis points. That would be 50% of the target payout, target performance, and then the maximum. So as of 6/30, we pulled the 3-year performance numbers. So if the plan were in place today, this is what you would be looking at. So if we look at the total fund, the 3-year performance is 8.4% versus a benchmark of 8.6. So that's 20 basis points below. For that metric, it would result in a $0 payout. No one would be eligible based on the current total fund performance. If we look at credit, the 3-year performance is 13.1 versus 8.9. So it is above that stretch number and would result in a 200% payout. I won't go through all of these, but if we look at risk reduction and mitigation, that one's in between, right? So it's beating by 10 basis points. And so that would result in a payout of 70% of target in that case. And then of course, as we look at the individual performance, that's going to vary by individual. But this is based on current performance.
Sure. The other question I have is, now, this is not shared. This is if an individual is working on real assets, then that's the only thing that counts towards his bonus.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, not the
But-
only thing, because it's also individual performance, but yeah.
Okay, because what it would seem to me, depending on the assets you were working on, okay, depending on what's going on in the markets, okay, I'm not sure if that's totally fair. If somebody is working at a better asset, they're receiving more than the ones working on an asset at that point that is not responding and not, you know, the bottom line is not as good because of things they can't control.
Well, I think that's where the benchmark is important, right? So the benchmark for comparison, I think, should normalize that to some degree, to say that is the overall trend within the market. And, you know, is the staff matching or beating that trend, that benchmark?
And if I may, Joe, I want to make sure, because this was highlighted earlier, and that's in essence, Trustee Oakham pay for performance. But the 200%, I want to make sure that there's an understanding among the committee. That's not 200% of base pay. I know Joe reiterated that, but that's 200% of target. So I know it's, so it gets confusing, but I know there was some confusion there in terms of how to read some of the metrics and percentages towards target.
When do you want this to start? You want this to start?
January 1st.
Well, there's a process. So, and we'll go over what that means if the committee approves this moving forward. But there's a detailed process even before we get to sending this to the Board of Supervisors. But essentially, if this goes to the Board of Supervisors, it's up to them to figure out how this is agendized.
Okay, now I know you've got all these terms, but where's the bottom line of what it would have cost us and what people would have received the last, let's say, the last 3 years each
Okay.
year? Do you have that?
We have it again for the most recent. If Lucy, I don't know if it's the next or the go one more and another. Sorry. So on slide 27, we didn't assess 3 years of planned payouts, but we're looking at 1 year based on the most recent 3-year performance. And so as we look at the total fund, as we saw, that does not meet the benchmark, there's going to be $0 there. For credit, we're measuring with that basis point outperformance that there's 445 million in excess return. The payouts associated with that would be 202,000 or 0.05% of that pool. We're identifying that for each asset class. And then if you look at the bottom, under the current year or like current performance for the 3-year period, we would estimate $1.1 million in bonus payouts. We're calculating excess return, but just to highlight there, if the negatives are counted as 0, right? So
I got to tell you, that tells the whole story.
In what way? Yeah.
Well, it tells me what percentages of salary there's going to be the increase. And,
yeah.
And I mean, that's what you want to see. It knows what it's going to cost LACERA.
Yeah. What
kind of benefits our great guys and gals are getting.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. Okay. So
Okay.
I think that's fabulous. Those numbers.
Good. Okay.
It's 200% scary.
It does look scary. And so we have a couple of sample calculations that hopefully will help bring that together a little bit better. So under this first calculation, we're taking a senior investment officer with the base salary of the $396,890. And again, as we look at the maximum target and threshold of responsibility, we have that shown as a dollar value and as a percentage of pay. As we look at the different parameters or metrics, the total fund, we looked at the, in that range of 0 to 50 basis points, currently at -20, so 0 there with that weighting. But the real assets, it's at that stretch level. So when we take the salary times the target value times the weight, right, we're going to apply the 200% on top of that. So that's where we go from those right two columns at weighted target value. We would expect 41,673. That's going to pay out at 200%, 2x at the 83,347. And then on the qualitative, as a employee who is rated as a 5, that's also going to trigger that 5 or that 200% payout for that metric. So it's going to double the opportunity from 29,000 to 30,000 to 60,000. And then as we total up the bonus here, we total of 142,000 as a percentage of the bonus maximum, that's 60%. As a percentage of pay, it would be a 36% payout. Any questions on how that comes together? Yeah.
Yeah, could you just repeat that last part, the payout?
So we just total, between the 3 different metrics. So it's really the 83 plus the 59. That gets us to the $142,000 payout at the bottom. And then we just measure that as a couple different ways. So when we compare that payout, it's 60% of the maximum value. So if you look above, the maximum opportunity the employee has available is 238,134. So they've earned 60% of that number. If we look at it as a percentage of base pay, it's 36%. And then we have a second calculation as well. So here we're, same total fund performance, but we're also, taking real estate as the secondary metric, which is also below the threshold level of performance. So both of those are going to pay out as 0. In this case, you do have an employee who does meet expectations with that 3 rating. That falls into that threshold level of performance where instead of receiving the full 20,307 that you see as the weighted target value, that value is going to be cut in half based on aligning to the threshold level. So it's going to be 10,153. So in this case, as a percentage of the maximum incentive, it's 6% of the max available and 3% of salary. Slide 27, we looked at any other, yeah, okay. So next steps, consider approval of the incentive plan structure. Included as well was the draft incentive plan document. A couple things to highlight in there as well as it does retain a lot of board discretion over the process on approving payouts, modifying the plan. Day-to-day delegation is set to other staff, but like the board, if you look through that in several places, it does retain board governance. To set and change metrics, again, approve payouts, cancel at any time, those type of things are included in that as well. So consider approval of the incentive plan structure. The internal design team will work to solidify the plan and obtain final approval from the boards, and then initiate necessary ordinance changes to work with the county on plan implementation. Anything to add there?
Yeah, so this is a huge first step in getting incentive pay plan reviewed and possibly the concept approved from the people who've worked here 20, 25 years. They said this has been a discussion for a long time, and this is the furthest that we've gotten. So kudos to CBIZ, kudos to our investment team, and for going through this. And the person who's driving the slides, Luciva Alvarez Nunez, did a lot of work on this. So this is great, but it's not the end of the road. So I think both Joe and Louis have stated that we have a little bit further to go. We need to just approve the concept so that we can work out the details. We need to finalize the incentive pay plan, work on ordinance language to support this, because right now this is something completely new. And we're hoping to bring this back in February of next year.
Okay, so please raise your hand if you have questions. I have a couple of questions as well as a couple of points on my end. So please raise your hand and we'll go through them all. So before we get started, just know that all trustees have received a letter from both the chair and the vice chair of the Board of Investments. In summary, they both stated their support of this plan and presentation, but you should have all received and had an opportunity to read them. A couple of questions. So CBIZ, I guess I'll ask Louis, what's CBIZ's reporting structure? So CBIZ reports to you on this process?
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Correct.
So you have direct oversight of it. Thank you. And then, sorry, John, I'm going to put you on the spot, Mr. Grable. I just want to ask two things. One, the overall view from the investment team. You have the pulse of your team. So what's the overall view from the investment team? And then I have another question, but I'll let you go with that one first.
It's a deeper question than just yes, no,
Okay.
or happy, sad. I think that there may be people on all sides in terms of high performers that view this as the most exciting opportunity available because it's motivating them to excel. And there may be some people, and I'm sorry that I'm saying this, that may not have been the highest performers, that are comfortable with the current structure of being compensated for staying, for longevity. And in some sense, our current structure with merit increases and COLAs, it's a very comfortable lifestyle to be comfortable. And I think that it's in the best interest long-term of the division for everyone to wake up every day concerned about performance. I know I do. I look at our performance report every single morning, and I run not scared, but concerned. And I don't think everyone necessarily does that. So I think there will be self-selection involved in recognizing, as Carly mentioned, that there's some aspect of opting in, and that this may take kind of a generation, a career generation, for this to be fully implemented should it be approved. One other aspect is, I think that just to view this as exciting for the investment office understates in some sense, it's a gauntlet being thrown down that it's raising expectations. Raising expectations is a challenge. That means that our job, should this be put in place, gets that much harder. And I think that's a good thing.
Or that kind of ties into my second question, which is going to be, what's the overall impact on what do you see as the impact on the portfolio with this? Because now we're raising that bar on that. So do we feel as though the portfolio overall and specific asset classes in general are going to perform better with this in place than without it? I'll just leave it at that.
And Mr. Chair, the short answer is better performance long-term. I think that everyone, I think about, today in the news, there's a big corporate governance event. There's a big proxy battle as it relates to incentive comp at a company that rhymes with Tesla. And I think that it not to draw an analogy to $1 trillion pay package, because this certainly isn't that. I think that this forces everyone in the investment division to think like an owner every single day, that their voice matters. And I think it forces potentially everyone to challenge their peers in a constructive way, to build much broader, a broader bench. And I think it makes the team more durable, more, I mentioned before, the concept of succession planning, but I think that it forces all of us to look at more metrics every single day and to think you know, and I believe that you were chair of the Board of Investments when we put in place the allocator to best-in-class investor strategic plan. This is towards best-in-class investor as opposed to thinking like someone that just shows up and lets someone else make decisions for them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I do have I have one more question, two more concerns, then I'll turn it over to the rest of the committee. Is this, Carly, is this going to be mandated for new hires? Can I'm assuming we can. I know we can, but is this currently written to be mandated for all new hires?
Yes, that's currently the plan.
How about promotions?
Yes.
Perfect. And is there any way to just, I'm not suggesting we do this, so don't shoot arrows at me, but is there any way to mandate it for all existing employees? And if you don't know the answer, if you need to look up the legal stuff, feel free to tell me that, but I'm just curious, is there a way for our board to mandate it for existing employees?
So. Yes, but I think it comes down to philosophy.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Political decision, we have the legal authority to do that, but we as a board have to decide if that's what we want to do with our employees, right? So, okay, I understand. And then I'll raise two concerns that I have. Neither one of these are anything that throw a wrench in it, but I do have a concern about the large salary difference between a financial analyst 2 and a 3. I understand that they are functionally very different jobs. And this is probably not anything tied into the incentive discussion, but I do think we need an overall look at that. And I don't know what the right solution is on it, but I think when two people working side by side, somebody one step higher should not make double the amount of money that they're making. That's a pretty big extreme difference. So let's look into that as an organization and find out what best to do. And then the other one is I have a pretty deep concern about the asset class specific elements. Because when I look at that, I know what asset classes I would want to get into and what ones I would want to stay far away from. And that's going to have an impact on us, right? It's going to have an impact on morale. It's going to have an impact on promotions. If people want to promote or not, would somebody want to promote from I know from an FA2 to a 3, that's a given, but from a 3 to a senior going into a different asset classes, that's hitting zeros. So I really think before we ultimately decide to adopt this asset class specific limitations, that we take a deeper look and consider the overall portfolio. I'm a huge support of the incentive plan, I'll tell you that. But I do think that everybody rose together, and I'm just afraid that we're going to create some issues and discrepancies. We're going to have people that want to go places and don't want to go other, and it's going to cause some issues. I see some major organizational issues that if I were the CIO, I would not want to have to deal with in the future. So let's take a hard look at that. I'll leave it at that. I know a lot of this is in flux and we have a lot of flexibilities as we implement, but I'll throw that out there for the board. I've taken everybody's time, so I'm sorry for that. And let's go ahead and go into the rest of the committee. Me.
Go ahead.
Oh.
My question.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, how is this going to impact that person that doesn't wake up every day and look at these metrics and the various things going on? And I don't know what percentage of the 48 or 49 people you have that would affect. And would you take away, this would replace what's in place right now for all the employees? Is that what you said?
The answer, I think that Mr. Oakham, some of that is to be determined based upon, you know, if this advances, when it advances, and how it potentially advances. And that was the question. I think that was asked by the chair, answered by Carly as it relates to, can you force people? I think that that's a to be determined type of aspect. I think in some sense, there's kind of a peer pressure to the extent if you're the one person in the division that wouldn't opt in, that says a lot about potentially your motivation. And if no one opts in, that says a lot about the confidence that the team potentially has in our capabilities. So I think that this is potentially going to involve some very, once again, to the extent it advances, some very hard, thoughtful, challenging discussions with the investment team. So I don't have a clear answer to it.
I would like to ask one other question. What are we doing? And I don't know how we do this, Louis, for the other employees that are not in the investment area that don't have this opportunity, and that would have a negative, will that have a negative effect on the organization? That where you're sitting with 48 or 49 over here and 300 over here, and they got a different incentive plan, which cannot, match what's on the investment side. How is that going to affect the organization?
Yeah, Trustee Oakham, I appreciate that question. That's why it was part of my initial remarks. I'm a realist. This will have a morale impact, but that's something that we need to work through. And what we're doing to work through that is really looking at all of our classifications. One of the unique things about LACERA is that we have diversity in jobs, and we have jobs of all skills, technicality, and I think part of our approach as a leadership team and in collaboration with Carly and the HR team is making sure that we're prioritizing all of our classification studies and making sure that we're doing a thorough analysis as it relates to how are we paying in comparison to, like I said before, the market and the industry. And I think that's the commitment that we have to all the other staff. Other organizational structure reviews that we're looking at for some of the, for instance, leadership positions, we're going to be looking at that as well. But we do have a very broad, diverse classification structure in the organization, and everyone has an important role. And it's just, we have to acknowledge the fact that, the investment team and what they do and the skill sets and the fact that we always say this, the pension dollar, 70 cents of every dollar comes from investments. And that's an important metric that certainly resonates with all of us.
The only thing I would say is we got to get this right. We got a smooth organization running today. And John, I agree with your thinking. I know you get up every morning and go to bed every night and you're thinking about this. And everybody should be thinking about this. But we can't put something in place that is going to disrupt the future of this organization. So I can't tell you what to do. I don't know if, maybe Sean, because he sees things with the sheriff's department or the engineering department or the legal department. Les is going to Hawaii, so he doesn't see anything. So I just think long-term that we have to make sure we're okay.
Definitely.
Hey, Miss Me.
So great presentation. I can see that a lot of work put into this. I shared with Louis the other day that before I officially sat on the chair, and I made a post on LinkedIn about pay for investment staff. So we cannot compare, even though other people may see this as a government organization, but we cannot pay government salary expected to attract talent from investment industry. Every industry is different, and investment industry is very competitive pay industry that we have to measure up if we want to attract and retain talent. So unfortunately, it's different from other industry. Other industry might pay, it's different standard, right? I'm in engineering doesn't pay much money, right? So you have to blame on what industry you chose to go in, I guess. But as a leadership, we have to recognize that, So we want to make money, and then we have to compete. So we are not the organization that will sell a good service to compete to make market share, right? Our competition, the only competition we have in this organization is talents. talents and knowledge and, the information, quality information in the investment. So that's what we're competing for. So I see this absolutely necessary. It's a great thing to do. And then I have seen the performance by our team that in the past couple of years will sit on here. Excellent, well-deserved, incentive pay. What the discussion I'm going to do in the following is going to be on how we're going to implement something new and how we're going to implement it, design it structurally, thoughtfully, and effectively make sure it's successful, program they implemented. So how do we design this to best serve the goal they want to serve, right? The goal of this plan is to attract, retain talent, right? And motivate, incentivize performance. So there's two layers to the motivation there. As leaders, leader on the board, leadership and exactly the team. One of the most important job, very important jobs, is how do you motivate your staff to perform? You have to reward the outperformer and not reward the competent, just okay performer, right? So that's one of the things that we always have to think about every single day. We have a vision where we go. How do we motivate our staff, everyone, to work hard to get there? So motivation is important. How the board motivates CEO, CIO to do their job, right? And then retain them. And then how does CIO and then CEO motivate the rest of staff? We delegate this to you, right? Every single day as a leadership position, how do you motivate the rest of to perform the best they can, right? So this is a tool. This is a tool that we can use, the board can use to motivate CIO, CEO, the tool that you can use to motivate the rest of the staff, right? So this tool we need to well design, well structure, make sure, it's effective, it's working to do what it meant to do. So that's what my question gonna go about, how to make this, enhance a little bit more, improve a little more, see how to make it more effective from my view. So I'm a detail person, always read the materials into the detail. I'm also a number person as an engineer, so I look into numbers a lot. So bear with me, I'm gonna go through some of the details, if that's okay. So the first thing that it caught my eye is that talking about performance, I see the threshold for staff to get this incentive pay is a performance evaluation of 3 out of 5. I believe 3 to 3.5 is competent. So that means that we're rewarding competent performer, right? And on the other hand, that means that we discourage people to do better. Do we want to do that? Is this a good design? So I would suggest to look into that threshold of 3 after getting the bonus pay. So that's low in my opinion. You are doing the opposite of what this program meant to do, to incentivize, reward performance rather than reward the competent people.
Can we bring up, let's go point by point. So can you bring up that slide that shows?
Lucy, I think it's 17.
Yeah, because there's one that showed a 3, and I agree. I got that. I doubt too many of our employees are getting 3s, but assuming that they are they getting additional pay for that, or how's that?
Yes.
Yeah.
50%,
So,
50% target.
yeah.
Right. So in that case, if you think about the target is what would be expected to be paid out at that 3 rating, the bonus would be reduced. It would go down. They would receive, half of what they would otherwise for that metric. So it allows for payout. There could
Lucy,
be some
can we go to the weighted, where it shows the individual payout?
sample 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it 19? On the comparison too.
I want this to be effective
Yeah.
tool.
Right here.
So here, if we look at this example and that bottom row qualitative performance, here the employee does have a 3 rating, so that's meets expectations. When you take the employee salary times the target times the weight, right, the employee has a potential bonus of 20,307. That 3 rating, which does meet expectations, would result in a cut to that bonus payout, right? It's going to be cut in half to 10,000. And so we're really setting 3.5 as that target level of performance. And then below that, the bonus will be reduced, and then below a 3, it goes to 0.
I think, yeah, threshold, even like as long as you perform competently, you're gonna get incentive pay basically based on the threshold. So So I advise to change that. I advise
To
change
make it
Very good. It's a
harder.
requirement.
Yeah. And, you know, in some ways, 3 is the meets expectations, right? And there could be an argument as well that that would be better aligned with the target level of performance. You want employees to meet expectations, and if they do, that would result in the target bonus. So certainly open to adjusting that, but it was intentionally designed that the bonus, we are setting the bar higher, right? You do, in order to receive the target bonus, you have to do more than just meet expectations to do that.
You get paid salary for meeting expectation. That's your salary is for. You do
Yeah.
your job as expected.
Mhm.
So in order to incentivize, that means that you do better than what is expected, right? So I think the minimal should be very good, performing evaluation in order to make this tool effective to use to motivate staff to perform.
Yep. no,
Otherwise, they're gonna encourage the opposite.
that's
So right now we have somebody gets less than a 3 does not get any bonus, right?
exactly.
Correct.
So what I'm hearing is that you need to get to at least a 3.5 to actually enter a bonus. So that's a shift over.
No, it's
No, what I'm hearing is that's a suggestion is to make a shift over that to at least 3.5, bringing that up to essentially what you're getting at the 3 to 3.5 level.
yeah, and we think that's reasonable. We'll go back
Yeah.
and look at it
Yeah,
and
please.
I think look at
Right.
And just remember, I mean, feedback from the board and from any individual trustees is something for you to take a look at, not necessarily direction, right? No trustee could tell you, including myself. But I personally agree with what I'm hearing on that. So but I don't want to tie your hands on where you're at. So I think you should take a look at that scale, understanding our comments, and then see how we can tighten that up.
Things that kind of, echo of what Mr. Gray was say earlier, some people might be just comfortable, have been comfortable. How do we motivate them? This is not motivate them. Let's encourage them, continue to be comfortable, not worry about it, right? We don't want that. So I want this to be an effective tool for you to manage your staff. So
I'm in total agreement. A competent employee should get their base salary.
exactly, yeah. So that's one thing. Thank you for listening to my explanation. I want to double down on the point that our chair made about the threshold. If you can go to the slide that show above benchmark 25 basis point, 50 basis point
It's
on different
slide
assets
17,
class.
Lucy.
Yeah, on different assets class. I will make 2 points. So one point I would make is, our team is great. Our teams have been doing great. And then we pride ourselves that our goal want to be first in class, investor. And then I know that we're capable to do that. We are heading there. We're doing like everything in our potential maximize, right? So this is also the same thing. We want to motivate outstanding, exceptional performance, right? So how do we define the exceptional performance? Is 50 basis point, 0.5% more than benchmark return is exceptional performance? Is that only limit that we want to encourage and motivate perform up to? So my concern is this is a little bit low below our standard. Our standard exceptional. Revisit it, think about it, compare other pension fund. How do they define the exceptional, right? And then different assets classes different too. Total fund is easy to understand, total fund, but we look at total fund return every single year. Like past year, we have 9% benchmark. We meet benchmark. So if we get 9.5, that means that we get double the pay salary amount, that amount incentive pay. CIO is 120% and then others 80%. So I said 100 is in the middle, right? So we want to motivate, incentivize exceptional performance. We don't want people to get comfortable with 50 basis point, right? So when we hire a manager out there, the manager our money, we have the hurdle rate. We'll put the hurdle rate, how much to get incentive pay as a manager for us, right? We have a standard there too. How do we hold ourselves to a standard, right? So I would say we should hold us to a high standard and also to make a high standard to make this tool effective, to get to that maximum. The maximum is there, but we want you to really deliver exceptional performance to get to maximum, incentive. So to my opinion, I think this is low.
Okay.
Any feedback from my colleague on that? I'm gonna continue on my the other point. If you can go to slide 49. Not,
I'm sorry, Ms. Me, which slide?
49.
I think that's our page.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, the package 49.
Oh,
but
right,
this slide
okay.
is-
Hold on, let me see. High level takeaways?
It's a summary, it's a select plans, some data. It's a
Yes,
slide.
number
It's
7.
7, okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's the right slide. We implemented something new again, right? And this will impact people's morale, how people think entire organization outside how they see us. So personally, I cannot speak on behalf of other people. I want to do something that I feel comfortable about, and have a good reference of other pension fund doing. So I'm looking at this table here. Most pension fund except CalPERS, the maximum is 200%, right? 175 for Texas. And then you see region CalSTRS is $500 billion pension fund. The max is 200%. I will feel comfortable with the range. Currently, what I see on the materials is 220% for CIO.
It's 120, trustee me.
Right, plus the base pay. This is plus the base pay here.
This represents, this is what would align to the 120%.
Oh, this is not including the base pay.
No.
Correct.
Oh, okay. That case, I'm totally comfortable then.
Okay.
I misunderstand this table. So I want to align with other pension fund.
Okay.
Perfect, excellent. So one more thing about CIO's position is the split between the weight of total fund and individual contribution. I don't know which slide.
Maybe 16?
It show the weight split.
It would be 19, Lucy.
So yeah, this is the right slide. Thank you. So besides the performance take the whole team work together, the AOE assets class, total fund, it take a team to get there, right? So individual performance matter important to how much weight you carry, right? So I see everybody else have 20% of the individual weight. When I think about CIO's job, CIO's job is so critical, so important, the big part of it, important part of it, might not necessarily big part of it, important part of it is reporting to the board, communicating with us, and instill trust and confidence to everyone in the public and on the board, right? So that part of job, individual performance job, is very important. So I would feel more comfortable to get the same weight as the rest of staff, 25% for individual performance, just to recognize how important that portion of work is for CIO position.
Okay.
One last thing, I think hopefully this is the last thing. My apology for bearing with me. One goal is to retain talents, right? We try to retain Mr. Graver and the rest of staff, many other talents here. So I think the retained talent portion of it comes from a two-part, from my understanding, like one is that long-term performance, right? Say here long-term performance, that's one part of it. And the other part is comparing with the corporation out there with vesting schedule. So if you stay here, this long 5 years, you're gonna vest, 4 years, you're gonna vest. So I wonder if there's a component there, we can incorporate it. Not a big part of it, small part of it, like for the incentive for them to stay. If the performance great and they're very good, and then they stay for 5 years, this portion incentive pay vest, right? So that is one way I can see that can help to retain talent, So I don't know if we can incorporate something like that. Think about it, look into other plans and look into corporation.
There's one plan I'm aware of that does that. It does blend between that annual incentive and long-term incentive when you start to look at that component. And so we don't see a lot of predominance with that plan design. It does diminish, if you're an employee and you're looking at the incentive and you have the 3-year measurement period and it's distributed between different goals, and then the payout is allocated over time, it does lead to, the view of that as being somewhat diminished, right? Like there's a lot out of my control and it's deferred and it's, I'm already being measured on a 3-year time frame, and then it gets paid out on a deferred schedule. It could do as much negative impact on retention as it would positive in that it would diminish the value, like the perceived value of the plan, because it would be allocated over time.
I see what you're saying. I think might be important to differentiate the 3 years performance return on 3 years from different from people staying here 3 years. We're not talking about rewarding people staying here 3 years. What we're rewarding from what I see the materials, we are based on the fund return, 3
Right.
years return. So that's nothing to do with the employees' time here. So I'm thinking, as you say, I see your point, not a big part of it. That's why we don't do a big portion of it, but small
Right.
portion of it, right? That we can have a vesting schedule, have that incentive for them to stay longer, retain, right? A little bit part of investing in a certain timeline.
Sure.
As a thought about retention.
Okay.
I hope this is the good feedback.
Yeah,
So,
no, thank you for reviewing.
And so you talk about the impact for the whole organization. I've thought about it too, and I've thought about what we have to do. What we have to do is industry measuring the investment industry out there. We have to do that. And the other thing is, but we still have to be mindful. Was that difference, right? We don't want the max pay salary in the entire organization. How much bigger is the entire organization total salary, right? I don't have that number, and that number might be looked at by outside, right? The highest like CEO salary out there, we look at it. We do proxy voting, right? We always in corporation, they always compare this highest paid CEO salary in the organization with the total entire organization total salary. What's the percentage use ratio, right? It's small, something to be mindful of, just a thought. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
you.
all of you, and thank you for great work put together here.
Sean, I have a couple questions.
Okay, I have Ms. Langton, so let me go with Ms. Langton and then I'll.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Eileen. I don't know how to get the hand.
Good
It's
morning.
okay, I'll have you.
Thank you for the report. It's funny because I take little bits and pieces of what everybody said, and I agree a little bit with everybody, but of course I have my own take on everything. So for starters, I just want to mention that this is a public agency. We're public servants.
Mhm.
So the whole idea that we're giving these huge incentives is really hard for me to swallow. I know there's an appetite for it, and I would love to reward our investment team because I think they're fantastic. And one thing I want to note is that even without the incentives, we have the greatest employees we could ask for, and they're still here. So if we can keep them longer, great. I think they deserve something. I don't know. I don't like this format, but again, if there's an appetite for it, I'm going to lose on that one. So assuming we're going forward with this type of format, I think the optics are terrible, even though other public pensions have done it, other public agencies have done it. I'm worried about like going Comfort Plus on an airline because it's $400 more. And yet, we're going to be handing out $8 million in bonuses. So that's really, if everybody gets maximum, et cetera, I think that was the amount, $8 million.
Salaries, yes. Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. So that made me very uncomfortable, but again, moving along. I agree with Nicole and Sean 100% about threshold. Like that is their job. That's why they're here. A 3 meets expectations, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you've seen our performance evals, and I don't know if they're the same as county council, but like 3 meets expectations, 4 is good. If we want exceptional, the report says we're trying to retain highly talented investment professionals. We want outstanding performance to be recognized. So I think we start at 4.5. I mean, in reality, I don't think individual performance, other than for the CIO, should be on there at all, because we all have our performance evals as employees, and just because they're in finance, why should their performance eval play a part in this whole incentive? Everybody has a performance eval, every single county employee. So I think that that is going to be a morale issue. It would be for me. But if we do keep it at a minimum, I feel like it has to be a 4.5 minimum. I think that the percentages are high. I think the CIO has to be the only one that gets a big incentive. He's the one in charge. He's the one that does go home and not sleep at night. And I'm not opposed to giving other people things to make them think about it more. I know that John knows his stuff, and if he thinks it would benefit his group, I will trust him 1000% and do what I can to support him in that. I wish there was another way, or I don't know if there's anything we could think a little bit more outside the box. I know apparently this is a 6-year thing, so I just got here, so I don't know what you've all been through until this point. Let me think what else. Yeah, my concern is that it can backfire because with the individual plans or individual performance evals, again, I would be upset if other people who are getting incentives are getting it based on their performance eval. Let's see. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Can I ask, our existing investment team, are they MAP participants, or do they get?
They're
can
MAP
you,
tier 1.
perfect. Can you explain that? Because I think that's currently happening, right? Their raises are tied into their performance evaluations.
Yes, their current performance evaluations dictate a percentage of increase of base pay. So right now, receiving a 3, 4, or 5 may entitle you to a percentage increase anywhere from 0 up to 5. It is set by the CEO annually based on performance, and that number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% now rolls into your base pay.
Who are MAP participants?
MAP tier 1 participants, the investments office.
So everybody?
FA2 on up. Yeah.
Correct.
Additionally, 1 or 2 other classifications in the organization, but that is the compensation in investments.
Okay, well, that helps. I mean, really. There was one other thing you just reminded me.
Yeah, because the county of Los Angeles does that across the board for MAP participants, so that's why I know it's kind of in alignment. I do think that we should take into account adjusting those to make sure that there's bonuses for actual, higher evaluations. But I do think individual performance should continue to tie into their raises, because that's what they're currently doing right now.
Okay, I agree with that. I didn't realize they were all MAP participants. Usually only our head of offices are MAPs. And then I understand that, is this being done elsewhere in the county? I had heard that either Department of Health or one of the departments or a couple of the departments has
There
something.
isn't an incentive structure within the county system. There is on the physician side hiring bonuses that they've instituted to try to recruit physicians on the Department of Health. And
Okay, and I think they do it for court reporters too, now that I think about it, but that's very different, I think. But if we want to, I mean, I hope John isn't going anywhere, but if we want to hire people, that's also an option.
yes, we've never, at least to my knowledge, maybe historically, but I don't think we've used hiring bonuses. Best.
Okay, any additional questions or comments
Yeah,
from me?
I-
Oh, yeah, that's right, Mr. Oakham.
John, are we having any retention problems?
we are not having retention problems, nor are we having recruiting problems. With that said, there are maybe the majority of the investment team at this point are Pepper members. And I think that the long-term compensation prospects may be different for people.
Will everybody have to go on this program, or will they have a choice to stay where they're at?
To the extent that the boards approve a program in some form, I think one of the determinants or one of the things that will be part of that is it opt-in, or is that choice made by the organization or by the employee?
Have we've had any preliminary discussions with the county on this program?
So they're aware this would be dependent on where we land. The materials that we have today will go as part of our collaboration with county CEO's office and class comp. This material will go to them for review, like we normally do with other classifications. Any questions that they
Who will
may
that
have.
start with? Will that start with the CEO?
That starts with the county CEO's office.
Who's
Classification. count.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we have not had good experience in the past with that office. And I'm just wondering, what kind of sales job do we have to do?
Yeah, I mean, we have been working collaboratively. I want to make sure that on the record, we meet monthly. I meet monthly with them along with HR, and we work through our pending classification items. There is a very robust back and forth dialogue that we work through. So I imagine that they'll have a ton of questions on this. But again, to Trustee Langton, the county doesn't have the investment professionals that LACERA hires and the infrastructure in terms of assessing a program like this. So,
Okay.
Okay, so since we still don't have a quorum, I would like to recommend that our committee returns this to staff with the comments that were made by the trustees for consideration as you tighten this up and move into phase 2, and that you rather than bring it back to the boards in February, which is what I heard, I would like you to bring it back to the JOG-C with a more defined direction that we're going to bring to both boards. And I won't put February on it. I'll tie it into whenever you feel appropriate. You're done with phase 2. You're ready to move in. So adopt the various comments as you consider, and then bring it back to us. And then we'll make hopefully by then have a quorum and be able to make a motion to bring it back to both boards for actual adoption. And I think we need to be real and know that this is going to have hurdles at the county level and the Board of Supervisors level, and that a lot of this is tied directly into the Supreme Court decision that we're waiting for an outcome on. So I think we've done a lot. I don't want to rush it. I want to do it right, and we got to do it right. So let's bring it back to this committee and take a final look at it after phase 2. Any concerns from staff with that direction?
no, we'll bring it back to the JOG-C. We'll coordinate what time frame that is, and then I think it's best to bring it back to both boards with a recommendation from JOG-C, a formal recommendation. So, yep.
Got it. And any concerns from the committee?
So from what you said, sometimes slow is fast. Sometimes slow is fast. You're right.
Has the Board of Investment heard this presentation, or are you aware that they were looking at this? You were aware, but I
I'm sure
mean,
they're looking at
this
it,
is
yeah.
a sad thing, because this was a great presentation and a lot of great input from you guys. And it's too bad the other board members have missed this. And I'm going to make a recommendation. If we don't have a quorum then we change the dates. Because this doesn't do any good. I mean, we've heard it. There are, what, 4 or 5 of us here.
Yep.
And it make no sense to waste everybody's time, okay, without the other, you've got, what, 18 total. And it's gonna be tough to make a decision without having the background knowledge. So, and if we don't have a quorum on the 4th, let's look at changing the dates, but you think that'll be okay? Okay.
Yeah, and in Linda's defense, there was a quorum, but just didn't show up.
May I add something to that?
Yeah.
So this is from my personal opinion to my colleagues or the trustee out there, right? Our core job here is to do the work on the board. So I would say everything else should be secondary. Like you should commit it, show up, do the work here. That's what you sign up for, you sworn to do, right? And then confidence that this everything can be secondary. That's my opinion, that I think we all our members that fiduciary duties that we sign up for. So I
Absolutely.
encourage everybody to show, I know life happens, things happen, out of control, but encourage everyone to think about that, what we're committed to do and show up for the meeting.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
respect to, staff's time too.
We got a fiduciary responsibility. I believe that the California Constitution also puts that as our primary responsibility as well, especially those that are employed by the county. Okay, so without objection from the committee as we stand today, we'll send it back for those changes. And excellent work from everybody and a step in the right direction. So I appreciate all the hard work and effort on this. Okay, we'll go ahead and move to item 8, which is the items for staff review, other than what we've sent back to the board or to the staff. Okay, item 9, items for future agendas. Any requests from any committee member for items to be agendized for the JOG-C? Hearing none, good of the order.
Mr. Uckham, anything?
No, I have nothing.
Miss Martin? Nothing? Miss Langton? Miss Me?
I think I spoke a lot. Nothing more. Thank you so much.
Mr. Robbins?
That was a good meeting. We had a lot of good discussion. I agree with a lot of what was stated by members of the committee. We need to move slowly but deliberately. So I look forward to ultimately getting this resolved.
Thank you. And Mr. Kehoe?
Nope, just a reminder, this is recorded, so I'm sure that members, that individuals from the CEO's office will review it and have access to the presentation. And of course, any trustee as well. I know that I watched some BOI meetings myself to stay abreast of everything. So we can certainly encourage the trustees that weren't able to make it to watch it. Perfect. Okay, and that's all I have. I'll take a motion for adjournment. Sure.